Of August 5th, 2008. We're going to start the day off with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Bill Vieira, who's in our audience today from Calaveras Grove.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have a number of announcements today. We're not only convening today as the Board of Supervisors, but also as the IHSS Governing Board, and there will be an agenda item that will cover IHSS matters. We also have a couple of announcements. A closed session was held on July 22nd pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9B1. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation, one case resulting in no action taken. We have two addendums to today's agenda. Item 11A, a resolution of the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors appointing John E. Taylor as Interim Community Development Director and establishing compensation therefore. That comes from administration. We also have agenda item 15A, a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9A, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Fraga versus County of Calaveras, case number 08-CV00977-OWW-SMS County Council. We are, by the way, after the closed session, expecting to report out decisions, so people who are interested in that case and are interested in the results of our discussion will know at the end of that session, and we will make a public announcement. All right, all of that said, we will move to the consent agenda. These are expected to be routine, but anybody, board, staff, or member of the public can take any item off for further discussion. Is there anyone who wishes to remove an item from the consent calendar? Board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to remove item 8 and 10.
Items 8 and 10. Anybody else? All right, do I hear a motion on the balance?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes on a 5-0. Item number 8, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, this item has to do with the Rock Creek landfill and the chipping of wood wastes and things over there. And the first question that I have, and I think Leslie had partially explained this to me in an email, but I'm just concerned about the logistics of signing a contract that was initiated, or at least penned by the buyer of these products in February. We're penning it, our version of it, in August, and it's only going to December. I got a communication from the vendor, or from the recipient, saying that they would just as soon extend it for another year, and I just wanted to make that suggestion. Do you have a reason why that's not a good idea?
Leslie Daniel, Public Works. The reason it started in February is we started negotiations in February. There was concern about indemnification and insurance requirements in their standardized contract, and we requested some modifications, and it took a great deal of time for their attorneys to review that contract. Hence, we're 6 months, or nearly 6 months into the time frame that was initially negotiated. The time frame of a year is their standard contract time frame. So that's why it started in February and we're now in July. In terms of extending the contract, that was contemplated at this point. I just wanted to actually get it in place rather than setting up another barrier. There is another consideration as well, that we are contemplating handling that material differently, going out to bid for that material, and then we wouldn't have material to give Ultra Power. So rather than set up an expectation with the vendor that we provide that material, it was thought better to leave it as a short-term contract that we figured would fall into the time frame we would be looking at new service options. Now that we've addressed the outstanding concerns with the contract, my expectation would be that if we wish to renew this contract come January, we wouldn't have the time delays that we faced this time around, and that it would go quite, quickly, I would hope.
Okay. Mr. Burke explained to me that the contractual arrangement between Ultra Power and the county had been in existence for 8 years prior to this. And is there any particular reason why it got complicated on the indemnification clause?
The process of signing contracts with a changeover in management has changed in the department. Historically, these contracts, which is a revenue contract, was signed within the department. It was deemed under the change in management that we needed to establish what the authority was for signing a contract. We inquired with county council and was told that the purchasing policy as it stands doesn't address revenue contracts, and therefore we needed to attain the board's approval for that. And upon reviewing the contract in greater detail, the insurance issue became, we were noting it. It was an indemnification that typically the government wouldn't accept, and we didn't accept, and eventually we were able to find a compromise we could all live with. So basically, just a change in process.
Okay. Just for the knowledge of the board here, in the conversation that I had with Mr. Burke, he made it clear to me that the facility over there consumes 200,000 tons of material annually. So our 1,800 tons is kind of an insignificant amount. He made an interesting comment that they figure that they lose about 2% of their intake just because it blows away in the wind. So I thought that what we're taking over there is roughly equivalent to what they lose by the wind blowing it off property. So I have a difficult time believing that it would be of major concern to them whether we take our stuff to them or not. I mean, so I think that we may be making too big a deal about this, the annualized contract. I personally would be much more in favor of getting this off our table for another year, so we don't have to address it. So I would be recommending to the board that we just go ahead and the gentleman explained to me, I have a letter to that effect, that he says that there's no, from their perspective, it could be a contract that would terminate in December of 2009, not 2008, and just get it done. But I don't know whether Leslie has alluded to the fact that that's, from their perspective, not a good idea. I'm not sure.
Well, I welcome the opportunity to extend the contract if there isn't any concerns about us interrupting the contract. Certainly less work on all parties' part not to have to return.
Okay. He mentioned some conversation that he'd had with the department about, why are you not bringing the material over? And it was explained to him that in the absence of an executed contract, we felt like that we had to keep it on site. And I guess we've accumulated a large pile, according to the staff report.
Actually, what Jim has told me is that they would not accept any material until they had a signed contract. And so that's why we have stockpiled that material.
That's pretty much the opposite of what he represented to me. But anyway, I'm prepared to move the item, but I would like to make the change that we extend the annualized date until the end of December. I welcome any discussion.
I guess, Marita,
I'm
did you have
not
something?
comfortable doing that. I mean, I would want to know, I'm listening to what staff said, and that they're looking at making changes this has been reviewed by county council, so now we're going to be asking county council to, today, make a decision on moving it out another year. I don't know what their concern might be in relation to what the goals are of the county. So, I mean, I agree with Russ, the longer we could have extended it. We have this frequently in our social services area where contracts are approved 4 to 6 months after the start date. Not quite the same, but maybe David has a comment on that, just extending it for a year.
Term or duration is a material change in the contract. We can't do that unilaterally. We'd have to get them to agree to that. So
Okay.
you either table this and we go back and we negotiate a change date, or we pass it.
Why don't we, it took, because of the complications here, it took approximately 6 months to draft this and get it up to this board for acceptance. And like Rita, I agree with Russ that, a multi-year contract would perhaps be an advantage. At least it would lessen the workload. But I would suggest that we go ahead and pass this and use the next 4 months that we have in this year to draft a contract that's going to go forward starting next year for multiple years.
If I might add one comment on this, I think one thing I heard from Leslie was that they're thinking about different options. If we're losing money due to the price of gas and transporting it that far, and we're only getting $17 per ton, then maybe there are other options that might lose less money off the transaction. And I think that's the review that they're asking to have. 6 months should be long enough, or 4 months, whatever we've got left in this, to try to figure that out and then make a long-term commitment to the best option available at the time. So I would favor passing the existing as well. And with the caveat that we want long-term agreements, not short as a matter of normal protocol.
Okay, hearing that, I would move the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 10, Supervisor Thomas.
Okay. That's
10,
10.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry.
10. I had pulled this because it concerns Dina McAfee, my representative from the District 5 for the Calaveras County Parks and Recreation Commission. I kind of expected Dina to walk in any second. If we could, I just wanted to introduce her to the board before taking action on this. Can we defer this to after item 12?
Yes, we can. We'll hold that until that time. Moving on, we are now at public comments. We're asking people to take 5 minutes per person, 15 minutes per topic.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Good so far.
Well, we won't be too hard on here. My name is Scott Clan. I'm the president of the Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance. Approximately 3 months ago, the Agricultural Coalition, consisting of the Cattlemen's Association, Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, Calaveras Grown, and the Farm Bureau, submitted a letter to this board requesting that an agriculture element be developed and made part of Calaveras County's new general plan. Over the past 3 months, the Agriculture Coalition has diligently worked towards development of a draft agriculture and forestry element that would make tremendous strides towards identifying and protecting agricultural lands and operations within Calaveras County. Today, the Agriculture Coalition submits to you, the Board of Supervisors, this draft agriculture and forestry element. Preservation of the county's rural environment is the primary goal of most county residents. Working landscapes not only create and maintain our rural character, but agriculture operations and related activities such as agritourism are also an important part of our county's economic engine. The inclusion of this agriculture and forestry element is recognition of the essential contributions that agriculture makes to the county's rural character and economy, and also exhibits the county's commitment to the long-term protection of our ag and forestry lands and operations. The Ag Coalition is ready and willing to continue our work with the board and planning staff on completing this process by finalizing finalizing the draft language and presenting a final draft agriculture and forestry element for the public's consideration. Thank you for this opportunity. This letter is signed by Bob Garamendi from Calaveras Cattlemen's Association, Bill Vieira, President of Calaveras Grown, myself, Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, Steve Kafka, Calaveras County Farm Bureau. There's only one more page of signatures. Bill Brohl, Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance, Saliba Al-Rafiq, President, Calaveras Grown, Tim Fullendorf, President of the Calaveras County Cattlemen's Association, and Stephen Couts, Calaveras Wine Grape Alliance. Before I finish up, there's a couple things I wanted to do. It had been asked that we specify a couple of key points, or one main key point in this element, and that is of the role of the Agricultural Advisory Committee. Currently, the main functions of the committee are to review applications for agricultural preserves, divisions of ag preserves, and yearly production on agricultural preserves. The Ag Advisory Committee makes recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on these matters, as well as suggested policy changes concerning the implementation and oversight of the Williamson Act program. The revised Agricultural Advisory Committee would act in an advisory capacity to the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission on all matters related to agriculture, not limited to agricultural preserves and Williamson Act contracts. The Ag Advisory Committee's scope of responsibilities would include a wide variety of agricultural, timber, and land use issues, including agricultural and forest land conservation, agricultural and forest production, and the protection of agriculture and forestry operations from the intrusion of incompatible uses. The committee would also advise the Board and Planning Commission on procedures and techniques requiring legislative or policy actions that would encourage and promote agricultural activities and marketing that are conducive to the continued well-being of Calaveras County. I want to point out a couple of things, or one main thing here. At the recent Economic Summit of Calaveras County last month, held in Angels Camp, the panel, as well as participants and audience members, overwhelmingly felt that a standalone agriculture forestry element was needed in the general plan. And it's important to point out that it wasn't just agricultural people that felt this way. It's environmental interests and business interests as well all seemed to agree that a standalone ag forestry element would handle a lot of issues that are, well, actually they're pointed out here in the draft. And finally, at the risk of sounding like my old football coach Hal Clements at Bret Hart years ago, you people have an opportunity before you, and it's an opportunity that most supervisors in counties throughout California and elsewhere don't get the opportunity to do, and it's to guide what's happening here in Calaveras for the next large number of years. Really, what you have the opportunity to do is to cement the uniqueness of Calaveras County into the foundation of the county through adopting an ag and forestry element on a standalone basis. And we heavily encourage you to do so. We stand here willing and ready to work with staff, as we did 3 years ago when discussing the land use designations in the natural resources zones. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
I'd like to comment on a couple of the aspects that came up. First, I do believe Calaveras Grown has only one president, and that would be Taliba Al-Rafiq, who's sitting back here. And Bill would probably agree with me, although he's an excellent former president. Secondly, we are taking this under submittal, and with the permission of the board, what I'd like to do is direct you to give a copy to County Council, the Planning Department, and I'm sure our Ag Commissioner already has one. But we would like to see if staff could receive it and make some recommendations for it. Also, Mintier should receive a copy, since that's the company working on the general plan. Is that all right with the board? We move it in that direction. All right. Very good. Thank you very much. Oh, one last thing. Just as a general lesson, this caliber of work, it's clear that there are people in our community that are capable of this, and it's a good lesson for all of us to see this kind of initiative and an effort to put policy matters and questions before the board. I really welcome this and think it's an excellent sign of health out there in the community. Thank you for doing all that work.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
three small comments. My name's Frank Ginger. One of them is the buses. You gentlemen and ladies told me to go to the works and this and that, and I did all that. Last Friday, one of the young ladies blocked me, and I got out, and as soon as I went to take her picture, she backed up that bus with somebody trying to get on the bus. Either they've got idiots or something needs to be done before somebody gets killed. Because I'm not going to stop taking the pictures. I talked to the head of the police department. They said if they have to, they're going to start towing those buses. What they're doing is highly illegal, and they're really making me mad. And I'm going to put a 2-ton bumper on the back of my truck. They cannot block handicap. It's a $375 ticket. So that's from now on, I have to call 911 to get those guys to move their buses. And it's crazy. And the second thing is that I heard the deputy sheriffs here that run the backup here may be getting fired. That'd be crazy to get rid of these old guys and to put new guys in their place. And these guys are wonderful guys, and they take care of you guys' security and stuff. I wouldn't be getting rid of them. I just heard that you guys were thinking about getting rid of them. I wouldn't do that. They even put up with me. So, and the last...
Hold on, wait a minute.
And the last thing is Wilseyville. Last year, I come up because code enforcement kicked them people out of their house, and I got them back in their house. They just got rid of, code enforcement made them get rid of 38 cars. These people get an SSI check only. I don't know how they did it, but I went up there and they cleaned it. But I think it's bad. That what they need to do is, this gentleman right here is the one who asked for the money to clean up that hazardous waste up there. And it should be done because those people still live there and they're still getting sick. So if they're getting sick, their neighbors have got to be getting sick because of the dump that's an illegal dump that the county put there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak under items from the public?
I have a few. My name is Ron Carroll. I'm here representing William Street. We've had this discussion with Mr. Tryon a couple times, right, Tom?
Yes.
And I guess this is the only way I'm going to be able to bring it up. William Street is failing. Manhole covers that the county had put in are coming apart. Kids on bicycles are hitting them and flipping over. We've got potholes on our street. The street is cracking. The drainage system was never finished on William Street from my house down to Highway 4. And when it rains down on Highway 4, the state brought the roadway into William Street, and the water's 6 to 8 inches deep, never drains. I have pictures, but I didn't bring them. I'm sorry. There's a lot of other things wrong in Murphy's. We've had a development start in Murphy's. We've had a bridge put in. Tom knows about all this. Nothing's been done. It's just sitting there like a big eyesore, the new intersection. Parrots Ferry is a road starting to fail. Vallecito, there's streets in Vallecito they're starting to fail. Potholes, cracks, drainage system problems. Murphy's, going back to Murphy's, same thing. Church Street, Rocky Hills, Bret Hart Drive. It's just, how do I get the county to do something? For any of you. I want to know how we're going to get this done. Marita, your district's in spotless shape. I've been up there.
Did you
I've
put
been
that
up there.
in writing?
I've never seen. If a pine needle falls, they're out cleaning it up. You go to Murphy's, the ditches are just completely full. The drainage system of Murphy's absolutely is horrible. Your district is spotless.
I wish I could say that.
Well,
but thank you. I'll tell them to call you.
yeah, please do.
Because, I mean, I want to know how we can get our streets and county roads fixed up in our area. I mean, because they're failing. Especially Parrots Ferry Road. I've never seen it from the bridge up to Highway 4. It's a mess. Brush is growing out on the road, potholes, big, huge, long divots. I mean, I haven't seen a county crew down in Murphy's in, I'll say, a year and a half. So how can we get this resolved?
Well, Ron, when I spoke to you last time, and I apologize that I haven't been able to get it done in a more timely manner, but I am going to schedule a tour of the district with the Public Works Director, Mike Miller. And I did say I would give you a call and see if I can include you in that, and I will. But it's probably going to be sometime in September, not in July or August, as I basically had hoped. And we're going to see what we can get scheduled for next year. But quite frankly, you know, one of the problems the county has is we don't have enough road funds to maintain all of our roads in the condition that we need to. I'm not sure the roads in Murphy's are quite as neglected as you're pointing out, but obviously, you know, William Street has been a
Tom, we have two people in wheelchairs on William Street.
I'm going to ask people to speak one at a time. If you want to engage in colloquy,
you know, we put up, I think, almost $160,000 into that little piece of William Street, $60,000, trying to fix the drainage that came out of Wildwood when that was done. And quite frankly, that whole area, Wildwood, William Street, Bret Harte Drive, has significant drainage problems, and we've never, in my opinion, even remotely fixed them. And one of the key elements in the EIR, Environmental Impact Report, for the proposed development that will be behind Rocky Hills there and behind Bret Harte Drive, one of the real keys is to try to see if we can fix the drainage, because we have to do something. This is our last chance now. This will be the last significant development in which we can, you know, fix the drainage. And we thought we had sort of fixed it on William Street, but I don't think we fixed it to the satisfaction of a whole lot of people, even though we put a lot of money into it. As far as the remainder of the roads, and you pointed it out too, I had Mike Miller, the Director of Public Works, said he did drive Rocky Hills and didn't feel that Rocky Hills was in a particularly deteriorating shape. Rocky Hills does accommodate the truck traffic that goes to Steveno Winery. That's the way they go down Bret Harte Drive, up Rocky Hills, and then hit Sheep Ranch Road, and then down to the winery. So we do have truck traffic, and we have to pay attention to that. But I guess I'll just leave it that we are going to get that tour in, and I will call you, and you will be included.
Okay. The thing is, going back to William Street, when that construction company came in and did William Street, you know, at first they did a good job, but then at the end they kind of neglected, you know, to come back and take care of the edges of the road, you know, and then when they did that saw cut, you know, and put the manholes covers in, you know, the storm drain covers, you know, they put a cement ring around it. Well, they're all coming up.
Okay, well,
you know,
when we do the tour, show us all that, and you know, I'll beat up on Public Works for as much money as we can get for the district.
Because we have two people in wheelchairs that go up and down that street all the time. One is your relative, and they have a problem negotiating the potholes, the cracks.
Okay.
I mean, they're coming up in chunks, and no one's even filled them in. We've called the county and asked to have these places, you know, cold mixed or whatever you call it.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll do our tour, and we'll make our list, and we'll see what we can get checked off.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for coming down, Ron.
I'd like to add just one piece of information on this as well. About a year and a half ago, we received a report from Public Works that we were running about $600,000 a year behind in maintaining the roads of this county as they are in their current condition, and you've described the condition as not particularly good. We then had a budget shortfall and transferred some VLF funds from Public Works out into general fund creating an even larger gap in this. We also have many citizens telling us that they don't want to pay anything more than we're currently doing, and we have developers who are saying that they don't want to pay fees for road improvements any more than what we have. This is not a reconcilable set of positions. People in this county are going to have to come to grips with the fact that we do not have the revenues from state or local or federal sources to be able to maintain our road system. And until we have an honest dialogue with people about what level of service they expect that is consistent with what level of contributions people are willing to make toward that, until that gets reconciled, we're going to be fooling one another. You can't.
Isn't it up to you guys to
It is.
determine all that?
It is, and what we're getting is we're getting a very very mixed set of signals from the body politic.
Well, that's just a small majority. You know, I mean, have you asked the whole county? Have you brought this up to the whole county?
Well, I think it's a good dialogue to have, and I welcome your contribution to it.
Thank you.
Good morning. Walter White, board member of the Mokelumne Hill Fire Protection District and Secretary Treasurer. I'm here to address item 13.
Sir, if it's on the agenda, this items from the public are only for the things that are not on the agenda.
I see.
So we will get to item 13 shortly.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize for not announcing that up front. We'll look forward to your input then.
I almost apologize because it's not in my power to show up here and not talk. And just in case anyone doesn't know me, I'm writing my name down. And my name is Darrell Rusk. My address is 101 Melcher Lane, and mailing address would be Valley Springs, but the physical location is Burson. And somehow in the back of my mind, I hear the theme for the X-Files. You can just kind of have that roaming around in your head. It's kind of an odd thing. One of the things that's come up in paperwork that I've seen recently is a suggestion or recommendation to create an economic development department. I think that's a great idea, but it may be something that needs to be introduced in 2 stages rather than just one, partially because you don't have the money, but also because there may be other options out there. And what I would think of, at least what I initially think of, is the creation of a volunteer commission for economic development. And that should include employment development within the county, because just having, more money doesn't really help the people who are trying to buy bread, butter, and milk. In the general plan, one of the overriding issues that I have recommended in the past, and I'm going to reiterate now, is the concept of sports recreation tourism. It has such a wide range of opportunities. Calaveras has marvelous facilities and marvelous opportunities to have sports-oriented tourism in the county, and I really strongly recommend encouragement of that. And I know you are each business-friendly to the limits of your ability, and that's because the budget situation in this county is such that it's not going to get better unless we have economic development. And part of that should include more housing. A gentleman a moment ago was talking about roads, and you all were talking about the lack of funds for road and road department work. Well, the source, or one of the sources for that revenue, is new housing, because you have a mitigation fee, and that fee is stifled when you don't have new homes being built. I don't recommend and I don't encourage dense housing. I just It just, in Calaveras County, that just is wrong. That's a personal opinion, and in some situations it may be perfectly reasonable to develop dense housing, but generally speaking, I don't support it. But I do support more housing and higher income bracket housing. And let's go back to that X-Files theme. It's out there. That's the kind of, I can never get that tune right. I can get it in my head, but somehow it's sort of like do-it-yourself projects. I know how to do it up here, but I've got stupid hands. But in your hands, I think you can encourage the things that I've suggested and things other people have suggested. I'm going back to the two-stage development of an economic environment with a commission. But I think the money's out there. I think the opportunities are out there. And I think that although we're in a housing slump and an economic slump to some extent in the area, the state, and the nation, it's not going to last. It's going to get better. We're going to come out of it. We're going to come out of it as always in the history of America. We're going to come out of it better, stronger, and smarter. So, thank you. And by the way, there are 2 laws being introduced in Sacramento. I think they're going to be introduced this week that may give you some protection. As members of the Board of Supervisors, you have to have a lot of brass. Well, there are 2 bills in Sacramento that add protections against the theft of brass. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Protection against.
Thanks, Daryl.
Okay, anybody else want to speak
Too
to
subtle
the
for
board
us,
under
Daryl.
Items from the public not on the agenda.
Yeah, some people want to get the road fixed. I'd like to get Public Works to stay off mine. My road has never been dedicated to the county, and they can't tell me how they acquired it.
Sir, could you announce your name, please, for the record?
My name is Dean Borgadalen, and I'm one of the 2 people that live along Struckman Road. It's supposed to be 7/10 of a mile long, and everybody that lives back there thinks that it's their road. We went to court over it. The judge granted them a prescriptive easement over 200 yards of my road, maybe 100 yards. The county claims the rest, but they can't say how they acquired it. When people back there are building, it's supposed to be a law. Nobody gets a building permit without a deeded easement, and none of these people have a deeded easement. Wainwright runs 300 or 400 cars over my road and 1,000 people. He has no deeded easement, and the county gives him special permits. I don't know how the county can issue a permit to transgress private property. And if it comes down to going to court, then I'm going to sue the county, and they're going to have to prove to me how they acquired my property. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Darren Borgadalen, and I'm going to be talking about the same issue. Now, I was in here 2 weeks ago with Downham telling me that he was protecting the county's interests. Okay? And only way you can get prescriptive rights to somebody's property or to walk into their world and tell them what you own and who you can dictate to is to take them to court and get that. That has never been done. Okay? So this whole thing is a sham. As far as the county sticking their nose into something they don't belong in, for Mr. Wainwright, here's the sick part about it. Okay? He's been there for 20-something years. He lives in an $8 million home. He's got 15 to 20,000 feet of metal building on his property and 2 other houses. He pays less taxes than I do, and I live in the dirt. Okay? The money he's ripped off in this county with his little sham for being a religious show. First of all, if you're going to be a religious show, you got to have a commercial piece of property, and you have to have access to it with a Class C road like everybody else. But the bad part about it is, over the last 15, 20 years, he's shammed somebody in this county. He throws money at their feet instead of paying his taxes. Okay? And why this county jumps at his feet is beyond me. The day after, a week after they got prescriptive rights across our property by suing us, the county was out there dolling his road up for his party. Okay? We got a right to fence both sides of that road. Sheriff Downham sends his guys up, steals our rocks off of our road because our fence is going to go there, and it was going to take a lot longer to put the fence in as it was to put the rocks up and show them what they actually had. Okay, the county comes out and steals all that for Mr. Wainwright. Ain't that amazing? I've been having hassles and hassles, and I'm on the phone every couple of days with the police department because these people ain't supposed to harass my family or dust my face and do whatever they want. They speed, they dust, and they come by, they honk, they stop and cuss at my family. I got 2 kids. I don't think that anybody deserves to stop on my personal property and cuss at my kids like they're dogs. And I'll tell you what, it's taken everything I've got not to walk out there and rip their faces off. Okay? And I don't know why this county, everybody in this county isn't on the same terms, okay? It was brought to my attention. Could you answer a dozen questions for me, Steve?
This is items from the public. I'm in
this
every week.
Yes or no questions is all
every week I'm in Mountain Ranch to meet with people who have issues such as this.
Well, I'm trying to say is how unlevel the playing field is. Because it was brought to my attention, and I could be wrong now, that you built a building on your property without a permit. And when Mr. Ray Waller walked up and confronted you to make it right with the county and the taxpayers, you had managed to get him dismissed. Now Marino comes on board.
Sir,
and you build a 2-bedroom studio, and you still don't get a permit for that?
No, there's no studio. There's a barn. It had permits. The permits were gotten through a whole series of agencies. There were 7 county
now
departments.
There's an apartment in it that's
and 3
non-permit.
state agencies. I do not want to have this dialogue with you based on this kind of false information. Don't make accusations in
You don't have a studio apartment in
no
that barn?
No.
You don't?
I do not.
Okay. Well, it was said to me by somebody I trust very, very well that was at your little gathering for your thing that you got a studio apartment in there, and as far as they know, there's no permit.
I invite you to my regular office hours if you want to talk about it, and I'll give you a tour of my place.
I've written you letters and I've
direct
called your
information.
office. I don't remember ever getting any comments back on an individual deal. And it was brought to my attention that you went to my neighbors and said that maybe they should come and discuss something of these problems with us and we get it regulated out. I don't know why it would have to go through my neighbor, which has nothing to do with my problem, to get to me, but that's another situation.
It was my hope that there would be a neighborhood meeting to try to resolve this outside of court. Instead, you all took each other to court, and you've had a ruling that you're not happy with.
No, I got the ruling I'm happy with.
Well,
I got a ruling that they only own 10 feet of that road. But see, the thing is, I'm supposed to fence or be able to blockade my property and protect my rights, and they come up and violate that. See, when that thing is 10 feet wide, there's no way you can pass on it. There's no way you're not going to back up 3/8 of a mile on a crooked road like that. So therefore, when the county comes out, the fire department comes out and condemns that road, they have to go. Okay? You cannot steal any more than what the judge has already granted, which is 10 feet, which ain't enough. Just like Mrs. Wainwright said walking out the courtroom. That's not enough. Well, they got enough money and they got enough of their own that if they need something, they should reach in their own pockets and solve their own problems. But you don't steal from your neighbor. He calls himself a religious person. You don't steal from your neighbor and believe in God as far as I'm concerned. But anyway.
Mr. Borgadillan, last week, 2 weeks ago, you presented the same information, and we asked that you meet with Public Works to try to work out what the width of road necessary to have fire and emergency
vehicles. We don't have to give up anything. They were never welcome on our property. I don't know if you've gathered that or not.
We asked you to meet with Public Works to resolve this and get your rocks.
Public Works said if I sign an affidavit that they would work with me. That's called bribery and blackmail as far as I'm concerned.
All right.
What basically is they'll never get enough, and they ain't going to get enough.
Public Works Department is the venue to work this out?
Public Works is the ones I'm going to be seeing in court. But anyway, get somebody up there to evaluate Wainwright's property, see through his smokescreen on his religious deal, and make him pay the taxes that is due to the county. Because there's no way that he should be treated special when he has more than anybody. And he flies in and out with a $10 million chopper. He has another home that he bought for $6 or $7 million down in Merced that he tore to the ground and put in an end dump and hauled out. And he put a $10 or $12 million home in its place. So from what I gathered, that's a $15, $16 million show he's got down there. So he's definitely got the resources to take care of his own and not smokescreen the county. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak under items from the public?
My name is Al Segala. I'm with the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and that's a hard act to follow. And so I hope that I never become abusive toward you in any way, but I do have some things that are maybe a little bit critical. One thing I'd like to thank one of our supervisors for doing a great job for a little historical bar in Copperopolis. It's the Old Corner Saloon. The Old Corner Saloon was a victim of regulatory abuse, and the owner wanted to use his porch to serve his customers. And he was told by the county that he had to come up with $3,000 to get a zoning change. And yet the Old Corner Saloon has been commercial for 146 years, and he couldn't get anywhere. The Taxpayer Association wrote a letter to the county. We didn't get a response to the letter, but we copied one supervisor. And that supervisor went to bat, and that was Russ Thomas. So you got our thanks, Russ. You did a good job for the Old Corner Saloon. It was corrected within a week. Another consideration that the taxpayers are concerned about, even though we don't have a lot of information, is the $90,000 or so that went to the outgoing Director of Community Development. And so at this point, we'd like to get more information about that, and we want to thank Tom Tryon for his courage in questioning that. On the hiring of a new employee, I think Bob Lawton has done a good job, got a very talented person. But would you consider not continuing that department, but still hiring the person as a consultant to work with the planning department to get it fully up to speed? And then if there's more needs to be done with the building department, maybe that person, because of its background, can also be a consultant for that. Or maybe work on both of them, but not to continue the higher level of bureaucracy. I don't think we need that. And past experience has shown that it's been very unproductive and very costly to the taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on an item not on the agenda? In that case, we will move forward to...
Mr. Chairman, if we can go back to 10, that would be great at this time.
Oh, we've got...
Yeah. Dina McAfee, would you come to the podium, please? Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors, as you all know, we've had a hard-working committee working for Parks and Recreation on a county-wide basis for over a year now. And I'd like to introduce to you Dina McAfee, resident of Copperopolis. Dina's family has had a property in Copperopolis for, what, 30 years? Or
33, 35, something like that, quite some time. So.
Okay. And I've had the pleasure of working with Dina during this past year and a half, and I'm just really excited about what she brings to the Parks and Recreation Committee. She's going to be a hard charger for us and working for Copperopolis and for Rancho Calaveras and everything in between. She's got her marching orders, and I would have to start forwarding to you her recaps of the meetings that she goes to, because she's pretty much of a dynamo. So, do you have anything that you want to share with us this morning?
Other than the fact that I'm absolutely thrilled to be asked to fill this position for District 5, I have attended a couple of the Parks and Rec Commission meetings. It's a wonderful team, and I'm just very excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thanks and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
You're sure after hearing this you're ready for public service, huh?
Kind of too late. I already jumped in when I was looking the other way, so here I am.
Great. Well, it's nice to have you aboard.
Another, I think, a significant thing to mention here is that Dina is the newest employee of Calaveras First Five. Just started yesterday, I think.
Yeah,
so.
Sure did.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's a great way to tie in my Parks and Rec interest with the responsibilities with First Five. So, again, I'm happy to be active in the community and not just a weekender and recreationer, but being able to contribute to the growth and development of this county is very exciting for myself and my family. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I would like to move this item, Mr. Chairman. Second.
There's a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Passes on unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Dina.
You betcha. We'll see you again.
Okay, we'll now move to item 11A, resolution to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors appointing John E. Taylor as interim community development director and establishing compensation therefor. This comes from our administration.
Good morning, supervisors. I'm Robert Lawton, County Administrative Officer, appearing in support of Agenda Item 11A, now under your consideration. As you know, the position of Community Development Director was vacated on August 1st. The item before you today recommends your adoption of a resolution which, 1, establishes compensation for the position of interim county community development director, and 2, appoints John E. Taylor as interim community development director. Few present today would disagree that the Community Development Agency staff and programs help define the ways Calaveras County grows, lives, works, and plays for years to come. Few present today would disagree that Community Development Agency programs and staff face immediate challenges with respect to projects large and small, new and familiar. Finally, few present today would disagree that the Community Development Agency is currently a topic of intense interest in our community. The urgency of the department's outstanding issues, combined with the suddenness of the vacancy, argue strongly for continuity of mature, experienced leadership at this time and before any permanent organizational decisions are considered or made. For these reasons, your county administrator recommends filling the position of Community Development Director on an interim basis for a period expected to last 3 to 5 months. The resolution before you proposes compensation for this position of $75 per hour worked. The county would make no payments for medical, dental, or vision insurance. The county would make no payments to the CalPERS retirement system. The county would not pay holiday time, vacation time, or sick time. The appointee would be eligible for reimbursement of travel and expenses incurred in the course of conducting county business in accordance with the county's travel policy, but the appointee would receive no compensation for commuting expenses from place of residence to place of work or for relocation, nor would the appointee be assigned a county vehicle for take-home or personal use. In short, the $75 per hour actually worked represents the total compensation package for this interim position. For purposes of comparison, the 2008-09 budget assumes a total compensation package of nearly $83 per hour for the position of Community Development Director. The $75 hourly rate proposed for the interim director is therefore nearly a 10% reduction from the cost currently budgeted for this position. For further comparison, during fiscal year 2007-08, the positions of interim building official and supervising plan checker in the department were contracted out at the rate of $125 per hour each. The resolution before you also proposes the appointment of John E. Taylor to the position of interim community development director. In reviewing candidates for this interim position, I consulted with officials of statewide and regional professional associations and discuss this opportunity with recently retired community development directors and county administrators. Before adding this item to your board's agenda, I first advised the employees of the Community Development Agency regarding both the recommendation that an interim director be appointed and that I would bring Mr. Taylor for your consideration. It is my belief that their stake in the success of their department entitled them to that first look at what the county administrator would propose, as well as an opportunity to question the CAO about the recommendation and future plans. I also advised CDA staff that Planning Director Bob Selman and Interim Chief Building Official Jeff White have my full support as the day-to-day managers of those programs, and that anyone I recommended would extend Mr. White and Mr. Selman that same support. Mr. Selman and Mr. White are responsible to the director for the staff and programs under their responsibility, and the county administrator is the party through whom the director is responsible to the Board of Supervisors. Now to John Taylor. Mr. Taylor would bring to the post a 30-year career in California public and private sector senior and executive management. Mr. Taylor served the counties of El Dorado and Solano for 26 of those 30 years. Prior to his December 2006 retirement from Solano County, Mr. Taylor was called upon to serve as that county's acting director of general services. Its programs included such diverse activities as the county airport, animal control, fleet management, county parks, purchasing, central services, facilities management, real estate services, and the county architect responsible for capital projects. During Mr. Taylor's tenure at General Services, Solano County adopted its first master plans for expansion of the county's two major parks, Lake Solano Regional Park and Sandy Beach Regional Park, and negotiated with the Solano Land Trust to develop and operate a regional park near Vallejo known as Lynch Canyon. For a total of more than 10 years, Mr. Taylor served as Deputy County Administrator in El Dorado and Solano counties. While Deputy County Administrator in El Dorado County, Mr. Taylor coordinated preparation of the county budget, was staffed to the County Water Agency, and administered county service areas, including 45 zones of benefit for road maintenance, street lighting, and other functions. He developed and managed a county fleet program for more than 200 vehicles and served on the team implementing replacement of the county's mainframe computer. As Deputy County Administrator in Solano County, Mr. Taylor was responsible for budgeting, analysis, and oversight for the county's law and justice agencies, including the Sheriff, District Attorney, Public Defender, Grand Jury, and Department of Child Support Services. He supported management and oversight of major capital projects, including an $83 million, 340,000 square foot county administration center and probation complex, an $18 million 90-bed juvenile detention facility, and a $3 million facility expansion at the Fouts Springs Youth Facility. He was liaison to the Superior Court and was the county's lead negotiator for court facilities transfer under Senate Bill 1732. In addition to his general management experience, Mr. Taylor served more than 7 years at the head of El Dorado and Solano County's equivalents to our Community Development Agency. In El Dorado, Mr. Taylor was acting Community Development Director for more than a year, leading a department including the functions of planning, building, environmental health, LAFCO, and recreation. During Mr. Taylor's tenure, the department addressed a backlog of land use permits through an interdisciplinary triage program, getting permit applications to the appropriate level of review under CEQA. From that position, Mr. Taylor was appointed Solano County's Director of Environmental Management, where for more than 6 years, he was responsible for that county's planning, building, environmental health, and LAFCO programs. In Solano, Mr. Taylor functioned as both planning director and building official until the position of chief building inspector was created. He administered county policies relating to CEQA and oversaw the professionalization of the building program, where ICBO certification became the norm for building inspectors. Following his retirement in 2006 from county service, Mr. Taylor has been affiliated with the Sacramento-based land use and environmental consulting firm Environmental Stewardship and Planning, Inc. ESP provides environmental services to public and private sector clients and is recognized for its expert preparation of environmental documents under CEQA, the National Environmental Policy Act, the Clean Water Act, and State and Federal Endangered Species Act. Mr. Taylor's recent consulting activity has included services to ESP's private sector clients in the solid waste and energy industries, as well as services rendered under contract with Napa, Sacramento, and El Dorado counties. If your board approves the proposed resolution, Mr. Taylor would take a leave of absence from ESP and direct his efforts full-time to Calaveras County. During my time here, I have observed that Calaveras County expects of its interim officials that they commit themselves to their efforts as fully as if they were permanent appointees. Based upon Mr. Taylor's record, I believe that he will at all times conduct himself in that manner and leave the CDA's programs, staff, and customers better off for his having served them. Although I am not in the habit of publicly discussing individual work assignments, I would here make an exception. If Mr. Taylor is appointed today, my first direction to him would be that within 10 to 12 weeks he be prepared to bring to your board a recommendation regarding either completion of the community development merger or community development's reconstitution as two separate departments, one for planning and one for buildings. I wish also to be clear that should your board choose to complete the merger and recruit a permanent director, Mr. Taylor would not make himself a candidate for that position. His recommendation to you would be professional, disinterested, and without prejudice. Mr. Taylor is strongly recommended for this position by his successor as the head of the Solano County Department of Environmental Management, which includes the county's building and planning functions, as well as environmental health and public works, by the county administrative officer of Solano County, and by the chairman of the Solano County Board of Supervisors. Thank you, members of the board. Are there any questions?
Questions?
And what happens at the end of 5 months? And why are you standing there?
I'm in the dock, Ms. Calloway. At the end of 5 months, as I noted, that I would ask Mr. Taylor to come back to your board within 90 days with a recommendation as to whether to proceed with recruitment of a new director and finalize the merger, or to change the organization of the department. The 5 months represents a limit of his ability to be engaged by us on a full-time basis, and hopefully we would be either complete the recruitment or be well on the way to having a permanent director.
Considering the length of time it took us last time, 5 months is extremely optimistic. So what you're saying is that Mr. Taylor can only commit 5 months to Calaveras County?
Just in the same manner that our interim public works director is also limited in his time commitment to the county.
I understand. But in Mr. Taylor's case, I mean, he's sitting right there because
Yes,
I talked to him, so I should look at him. Can I ask Mr. Taylor the question? I'm not real
I have no doubt that he's fully capable of answering for himself.
I'm sure he is. I want the board to know that I talked with Mr. Taylor last week. I was not comfortable approving something that I didn't even know what he looked like. And he was very gracious to come to Calaveras last week so I could talk with him. But, Mr. Taylor, are you saying that 5 months would be the max that you could commit to Calaveras County? I mean, if it took us 8 months?
Yeah, fine. Supervisor Callaway and members of the board. Technically, it's a 960-hour limit under CalPERS in terms of being an annuitant. That's approximately 6 months full-time. Given the vacations that I had pre-planned a couple of in the next couple of months, the county's holidays that I would not participate in, it becomes a little bit more than 6 months in terms of calendar months. So, and if I were not working full-time at the last couple of months, if it needed to be stretched out, again, the calendar could be stretched out longer, but as long as it didn't exceed.
So it really has to do with the 960
That's correct.
hours?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And I am fully prepared to remain on leave of absence from ESP as long as it takes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
ESP, isn't that what you have to have as a Board of Supervisor member? Nobody wants to laugh today.
All right. Is there public comment on this?
Yeah, I have a question for the applicant. Are you familiar with communities that are able to operate successfully?
Sir. Questions go through the board.
Oh, okay. My question for the applicant is he familiar with communities that are able to operate successfully without a community development agency? In other words, planning departments functioning properly, building departments functioning properly, and both of them being responsible to the CAO.
Are you asking for the trend lines in California on this topic?
Yeah, I'm asking the applicant if he's familiar with that. Basically, I'd like to know his feelings about whether that agency should continue or not.
Well, I believe that
we just heard.
CAO has already spoken to this. This is a matter of board policy, and we're asking staff to come back with recommendations within 90 days, I believe is what was just spoken.
Good morning. My name is Roger Stevenson from Arnold. I've resided and built in this county since 1982, and I'm currently the president of the Calaveras Builders Association. And it's our position that since the Board of Supervisors has already taken steps away from a true community development agency and a one-stop permitting process by transferring on-site sewage and environmental management and grading responsibilities to the Public Works, we recommend that they take the next step and remove the building department from the Community Development Agency and make it a standalone department as it was before. We also recommend that they comply with state law and appoint a certified building official. The only person on staff who has that certification, to our knowledge, is Jeff White. And if the Board of Supervisors would like to have a recruitment process, we believe that you should at least appoint Jeff White to that position in the interim.
The agenda item that we're on is item 11A, which refers specifically to the hiring and compensation package for the interim director, and that's the topic before us.
Because we're proposing that there
the items that you're bringing up are not on that, not related to that agenda item, would be better served in the public comment section.
Well, I would disagree. We're recommending that we do away with the Community Development Agency. That's our suggestion.
Okay, are you
so I believe that since we're on the subject of a Community Development Agency, this is the proper time to bring this issue up. If you're now considering hiring some interim person to fill that position, I believe that our voice should at least be heard as to a recommendation that you don't fill that position, since that's what you're about to do.
I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about hiring other people to different positions.
Well, you haven't let me
talking
finish.
about this one position. Go ahead.
Okay. What we're proposing is that you separate the building department and appoint Jeff White as the chief building official at this time. And if you would like to recruit someone else for that position, we certainly are not opposed to that. But the association does not believe that there is a need for the CDA, nor a CDA director. We believe it would be best for the county to hire a well-qualified and experienced planner to be the planning director. We also feel that the supervisors appoint a selection review committee to assist them in this endeavor. We believe that members from the Board of Realtors, the Chamber of Commerce, the Calaveras Taxpayers Association, the Economic Summit Group, as well as the Calaveras Builders Association, be on the selection committee. To deflect any criticism that these groups are biased towards growth policies, the supervisors could also select members from the Calaveras Planning Coalition. Since all of the citizens in the county will be affected by a new director, it is only fitting that we all have a voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a little comment on what you guys are going over. First of all, $75 an hour times 8 is $600 a day. It works out to be $200,000 a year. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have the credentials to cover this, but we are already, as a community, under the gun. And when we do elect whoever comes in there to fill this position, we need to know that they can handle making that kind of money work for the county and their responsibilities to make them viable for the county's welfare to pay for that kind of expense. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? And your recommendation is to authorize the resolution. Is there any discussion on the board? Any further questions? Any positions people wish to take before making a motion?
I'll move this item.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I'll give a comment since we have a motion and a second on the floor. I am in support of the motion. I guess I was the lone supervisor that was not in favor of a community development agency. I thought the two departments should be standalone departments. When we combine them and we have a community agency development director, that requires also a secretary and 2 more office spaces, et cetera, and the added cost to that is somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 a year. I think that money, I thought that money back then could be better utilized hiring competent people in the 2 departments rather than doing a consolidation. I have never felt that, quite frankly, the functions of the 2 departments are particularly compatible to each other. I'm not sure that the parts aren't worth more than the whole. And Mr. Taylor is going to give us an opinion on that. I support this. I think what should come early is a recommendation from John as to whether we should have a community development agency or whether we should have 2 standalone departments. If it's 2 standalone departments, then I think John's tenure will probably be shorter than if the board decides to go back to a community development agency director, because if we do that, then I think John's tenure would probably extend through the recruitment period for a community development agency director to be hired and in place. But I'm hoping that we will have a recommendation, within, I would think within 60 days, certainly within 90, as to the direction the board needs to go. And then it's going to be up to the board. I mean, in the final analysis, if there are 4 votes that want a community development agency, then that's what we're going to have. But hopefully we can get a recommendation long before 960 hours are looking at us. So those are my comments.
Thank you. We have a motion, a second. Any further comment? And we'll move it to a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously on a 5-0 vote.
Welcome on board.
Welcome, John.
Do you wish to take a 5-minute recess?
It could be 2 minutes.
All right. Well, the board will now take a 2-minute recess, and we will move to item 12. We're ready to resume business, and we are now on item 12, which is a discussion and possible action regarding appointing 2 consumers to the In-Home Supportive Services Advisory Committee. And I'm assuming we have somebody from CalWorks to talk about this.
Yes, I'm Teresa Sable, and I'm with IHSS Public Authority. I'm here to ask your approval of 2 new consumers to the IHSS Advisory Committee and to extend the appointment of 3 current members of the IHSS Advisory Committee.
Okay.
Do you have some names here?
Now,
yes. The 2 new members would be William Balthrop from Copperopolis, California. He's a consumer. And Louise Scarborough from Angels Camp. She's also a consumer. The 3 members we'd like to extend 1 term is Robert McGraw from San Andreas, a consumer. Janelle Brown from Altaville, she's a consumer. And Bob Lewis, who is our current chair He's with the Human Resource Council.
And Diane Leo's term is not expired, so she does not need a reappointment?
That's correct.
Ready for a motion?
Okay, if there's no discussion on this, does anybody from the public wish to comment?
I'll move the item, Mr. Chair.
It's a motion. Is there a second? Motion is second. Those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. And that was not the Board of Supervisors, but the Public Authority Board taking that action.
Thank you.
We now move to item number 13, consideration and possible action regarding a resolution waiving community development agency fees for permits issued to districts for fire protection projects. Okay. Bob?
Mr. Chairman, Planning Director for the county. A couple of different items. I'm going to get into trouble because I just moved that. This is a request for a waiver of the Community Development Agency fees for the particular fire protection district. Since this was originally discussed with Stephanie, as always in our life, things got more complicated. First of all, we have other districts who are interested in the potential for waiver, and that includes districts other than fire protection districts. So we have this somewhat of a catch-22 of how do we continue to provide the services that the public expects us to and at the same time waive our fees. Yet these are unique districts. They generally serve public purposes and are to the benefit of the general public, and we always have this balancing problem. So the board has a number of different options that are slightly different than what we've already suggested to you. One, obviously, is you could waive the CDA fees. You could expand that to cover any public agency waiver of CDA fees with those certain exceptions as are set forth. That actually is only a partial waiver because, if you'll remember, the CDA collects fees for the Environmental Health Department. It also collects it for the fire departments themselves, so we're waiving fees for other, potentially the agency itself. And there are also public works fees. Those fees, I don't have the authority, and we didn't bring this forward to waive, so we would have to either make that modification or collect those fees. Speaking just very quickly to Mr. Taylor in the back, there's yet another option that may be actually even a better approach for your board at this time, because it focuses in not on the broad issue but on specific requests. And that is if we change the focus from not waiving the fee but changing who the applicant is. In certain cases, if the Board of Supervisors were to become the applicant for a zone change or a general plan amendment that would be necessary for a fire protection district or a veterans district to do whatever development is necessary in their normal course of business, there are no fees attached with that. So I'm suggesting to you that perhaps, at least on an interim basis until we have some time to consider it, if the board were willing, they could entertain requests from individual districts as board members for the district, and then bring that to the board as an agenda item to consider initiating whatever would be required relative to a zone change or a general plan amendment as a county project where there are no fees. But we would ask for one exception to that waiver, and that would be the environmental cost if it is other than a mitigated negative declaration. I mean, I don't think we want to get into the cost of environmental impact reports for other agencies' private property. But other than that, there may yet be another option in order to accomplish the short-term goal of providing relief to the agencies that have rather important projects that need to get done quickly, yet not commit us to a waiver of fees that we may need to come back and reevaluate in the future.
Are there any pending situations that are timely in nature, or can we spend? I had a suggestion from County Council that we may, because of the broad policy implications, want to hold a study session on this topic and make sure that we've got all different angles on this, and I know there might be other agencies aside from fire that may have an interest as well. So
I'm aware of two agencies right now that I have specifically worked with. One is the Copperopolis Fire Protection District. They need to do some expansion. And the other is I believe it's the Valley Springs Veterans, which is actually the Jenny Lind Veterans Association. So they also have expansion plans. They've been working with us, and they are in the Valley Springs case. They're looking at both a general plan amendment and a zone change. So we're talking in the nature of $12,000 worth of fees. Fire Protection District in Copper is probably just a zone change. I believe that's all it is. But again, it's almost $10,000 in fees. So it is not an insubstantial amount of money, but both of those agencies that I'm aware of do provide very general, very broad public service that is certainly in the county's best interest to do what we can to assist. So I'm offering you options at this point, and perhaps we want to explore some of them further and certainly hear from council if there's a problem.
We looked at this in more detail after this was already in the works, and we apologize because we probably should have tagged some of these issues earlier. But there's essentially three things going on, and these are the reasons why we think that this merits a study session. Number one, right now, you have a resolution that conflicts with the recommendations. It's not clear what permits we're talking about. So we have an issue with clarity. Number two, there are some provisions in the county code that have not been examined as to our authority to waive. Bob has addressed some of those exceptions, but there might be some other things that we legally would have to look at, and we haven't done due diligence on that as of yet. And then, as Bob also broached, there's the whole equal protection argument. If you're going to give this to one district, you're going to essentially have to, whatever you give to one district, you're going to have to eventually give to any other public entity. Prop 218, Prop 13 have bled these districts out dry. They really deserve a break to the extent that we can give it to them. All I'm saying is I don't believe that this particular resolution is ripe yet. I think it needs to be thought through a little bit better, and I do believe it needs more input, not only from planning, but public works, environmental health, because it has bigger implications than it looks. So that's why we suggest you do this. Just bring everybody in, do a study session.
All right. I think that probably that makes sense for us to do in a timely way, though, since there are a couple pending. We wouldn't want to see them incur large expenditures or have delays in their projects. So is there a particular time you might be able to come back with a right proposal? And let me suggest also that it seems to me there's three issues. One is, what can we technically waive? And that's probably for county council to do. Another is what the other departments' wishes would be and the impact to them, and assessing that in a more I don't know, collegial or unified way. And finally, there's a question of scope of this. We went from one department request to all fire departments, but we have similar issues with veterans, districts that are doing park and rec work. We have issues maybe with the cemetery districts and other things that are essentially public services that we may want to consider as we try to do this all at once. So, and I don't know what the position of the board, we haven't even discussed it, but that scope issue might also be reviewed as well. Is it acceptable to the board to do this in a study session context with those three?
Yeah, I called CCWD because I was asked on a project up in Ebbets Pass if they would. And they, under the water code, are not allowed to waive fees.
Right.
So the connection fees at least through CCWD. I'm assuming it applies to all water sewer districts cannot be waived. But
All right, so we'll look at...
I'll give 2 cents worth. We talked about this in the past, and it was basically something that turned out to be a lot more difficult than simple. And you know, David can say, well, they've been devastated by Prop 13. I don't think they've been any more devastated by Prop 13 than the county of Calaveras has. I mean, everybody's been basically pretty much treated equally. And I'm at the point of being sort of leery of starting to just waive fees. And you know, if this is what it costs the county to, and if we're charging actual costs, and this is what it costs the county to do, then I'm not sure that we should just be sort of in the business of subsidizing all other government entities any more than there should be in the business of subsidizing the county of Calaveras. So I'm a little bit leery of opening this up and then finding out that, you know, we don't have enough money to cover planning or building or you know, to fully staff the departments, et cetera, because we're just out waiving fees. I mean, just the 2 that were mentioned was like 22,000. Well, you know, that's a pretty big number. And those are the 2 that are before us right now, and we still have the obligation of operating, you know, planning and building departments and public works departments and environmental health departments and everything else that goes with county government. So I don't mind a study session, but I think I would just caution the board to be careful where you go with this. I mean, it's easy to give money away, but we're not in a position to be giving a whole lot of general fund money away. And we're talking substantive dollars here.
Other board comments before I move to public? I'll make one for myself, which is that I think there is a line to be drawn between essentially what are public services that may have or may should be provided by the county. We divested ourselves of fire some time ago, but it still remains a central public service, and I personally don't have a problem supporting that in this way, but I think it's something that we need to create a policy that we need to have everybody discuss, and with all its economic as well as policy implications. So I would favor and I would ask for board assent to a study session to be held. I think the month of September is
We'll work with
time enough.
County administrator as quickly as we can.
All right, so as early as possible, but as ripe as can be. So I'd like to poll the board on that.
fine.
On the point that Mr. Selman brought up about the board could initiate something, I mean, that apparently that is policy, that the board could initiate a feeless zone change. I would hate to hold up, I know particularly the Copperopolis Fire District is trying to move aggressively on building a new facility down there. So if we have the study session in September and it takes so long to advertise the implementation of this change, I could conceivably see that their project might get pushed back several months.
Well, why couldn't it be that the bill just gets pushed back, not the project? I mean,
Yeah,
we've done payment schedules with private entities. I mean, I think the project and the cost, county cost, could be accommodated.
Our goal is to do no harm here while we give good consideration to it. So if the staff could make sure if we have to deal with something on an interim basis or if we can put off costs, hopefully that will be part of our discussion on the study session.
And Russell put up his Rolexes.
I had to hawk that earlier.
All right, completing the okay, Bill?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes, you want a study session, but I'm not certainly going to be supportive of starting to waive fees that go into the general fund.
Fair enough. I also favor study session, so we'll have one, and I believe there are members of the public that wish to speak to this, so I'll entertain that at this time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. There are 3 points that I'm concerned about on this issue. One is, if there is a boundary or significant function change in a district, then I'm not sure if LAFCO isn't an agency that has to be involved. I would not want to circumvent or bypass the Planning Commission on those sorts of issues. I think it becomes extremely dangerous, or maybe not dangerous, but certainly risky, when a Board of Supervisors or any other agency begins cherry-picking who they're going to offer support to and who they don't. I've seen city councils that have gotten into deep trouble by trying to do that, and all they end up with is a mud flat where they're trying to figure out which areas are more gray than other areas. So those are 2 of the concerns. And I'm trying to remember the third one, and I think as I'm getting older, but never mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment on item 13? In that case, we'll move to board matters. Review of correspondence, reports on various matters of concern. We'll start with Supervisor Tryon.
I do not have anything to bring before the board today, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Supervisor Thomas.
Okay. On tomorrow, I have had a conflict with my responsibilities on the Central Sierra Economic Development Commission because of my signing up for the Leadership Calaveras classes. I was not prudent when I agreed to do that, and I've lost sight of the fact that the meetings for the Economic Development Group occurred on the same day, so I won't be able to continue going to those. Supervisor Callaway has agreed to attend the meeting in my stead tomorrow. Want to remind the board members and also the public that we have a front page article in the Enterprise today that talks about the meeting, 2 meetings that I've scheduled the county assessor to come down to Copperopolis tomorrow night at the it's Jenny Lynn tomorrow night at the firehouse at 7 o'clock to discuss the methodology for reducing your property tax liability under the Prop 8 rulings. So that'll occur at the beginning at 7 o'clock tomorrow night at Jenny Lind, and then the following Wednesday night, the 13th, at the Copperopolis Firehouse. So I would encourage anybody that has an interest in those discussions to come on down. So, and then on Friday, I'll be attending the Mountain County's Water Committee meeting at Couts. That's beginning in the early morning. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Callaway.
I'll be at Area 12 Agency on Aging this week and also at Mountain Counties on Friday.
Supervisor Claudino.
I have nothing to report.
And I have the Mental Health Advisory Board today at 4 if we're done in time, which seems unlikely, but I'll attend some portion of that. And then the Golden Hills CSA is holding a meeting on their rules of order, which I'll be attending, and the Paloma Community meeting on Monday the 11th. And those are all the board responsibility meetings I have. We now move to, let's see, is item 15A to be considered before or after? That would be after.
Steve?
Oh, yes. Marita reminds me that I have not gone through the administration and county council and county clerk. So are there any announcements from?
Just a reminder, Mr. Chair, that you will be prescribed to the pleasure of my company at next week's board meeting, and in my stead, Shirley Ryan, Assistant County Administrator, will more than ably fill in.
Thank you. County Council?
We will be making an action on one of the closed session items, so don't leave after the closed sessions because we have to come back and announce.
Okay. And we have Carol. Any news from the clerk? Okay, one of these days we'll have to make something up. Huh? And we now move to item 15 and 15A, which are closed sessions. We'll take a moment out to take down the equipment, but also I want to make sure that people know that there are two very scintillating afternoon meetings, one dealing with water policy, joint board meeting with Calaveras County Water District and the Board of Supervisors at 1:30 at the high school. We then follow, scheduled for 2:30, the general plan update, which will be occurring back here? Actually,
stay there.
We're going to stay at the high school.
We start at 1:30, right?
That's in the gym, in the high school gym. So 1:30 will be when we'll commence that. Thank you for attending. This meeting is adjourned.
Well, we have